The Kabbalah, the secret doctrine O.E. Israel Albert Pike, quoting from Transcendental Magic, thus sums up the importance of Kabbalism as a key to Masonic esotericism. One is filled with admiration on penetrating into the sanctuary of the Kabbalah at seeing a doctrine so logical, so simple, and at the same time so absolute. The necessary union of ideas and signs, the consecration of the most fundamental realities by the primitive characters, the trinity of words, letters, and numbers, a philosophy simple as the alphabet, profound and infinite as the word. Theorems more complete and luminous than those of Pythagoras, a theology summed up by counting on one's fingers, and infinite which can be held in the hollow of an infant's hand. 10 ciphers and 22 letters, a triangle, a square, and a circle. These are all the elements of the Kabbalah. These are the elementary principles of the written word, reflection of that spoken word that created the world. Morals and dogma. Hebrew theology was divided into 3 distinct parts. The first was the law, the second was the soul of the law, and the third was the soul of the law. The law was taught to all the children of Israel. The Mishnah, or the soul of the law, was revealed to the rabbins and teachers, but the Kabbalah, the soul of the law, was cunningly concealed, and only the highest initiates among the Jews were instructed in its secret principles. According to certain Jewish mystics, Moses ascended Mount Sinai 3 times, remaining in the presence of God 40 days each time. During the first 40 days, the tables of the written law were delivered to the prophet. During the second 40 days, he received the soul of the law, and during the last 40 days, God instructed him in the mysteries of the Kabbalah, the soul of the law. Moses concealed in the first 4 books of the Pentateuch the secret instructions that God had given him, and for centuries, students of Kabbalism have sought therein the secret doctrine of Israel. As the spiritual nature of man is concealed in his physical body, so the unwritten law, the Mishnah and the Kabbalah, is concealed within the written teachings of the Mosaic Code. Kabbalah means the secret or hidden tradition, the unwritten law, and according to an early rabbi, it was delivered to man in order that through the aid of its abstruse principles, he might learn to understand the mystery of both the universe about him and the universe within him. The origin of Kabbalism is a legitimate subject for controversy. Early initiates of the Kabbalistic mysteries believed that its principles were first taught by God to a school of his angels before the fall of man. The angels later communicated the secrets to Adam so that through the knowledge gained from an understanding of its principles, fallen humanity might regain its lost estate. The angel Raziel was dispatched from heaven to instruct Adam in the mysteries of the Kabbalah. Different angels were employed to initiate the succeeding patriarchs in this difficult science. Tophiel was the teacher of Shem, Raphael of Isaac, Metatron of Moses, and Michael of David. See Faiths of the World. Christian D. Ginsburg has written, "From Adam it passed over to Noah, and then to Abraham, the friend of God, who emigrated with it to Egypt, where the patriarch allowed a portion of this mysterious doctrine to ooze out. It was in this way that the Egyptians obtained some knowledge of it, and the other Eastern nations could introduce it into their philosophical systems. Moses, who was learned in all the wisdom of Egypt, was first initiated into it in the land of his birth, but became most proficient in it during his wanderings in the wilderness, when he not only devoted to it the leisure hours of the whole 40 years, but received lessons in it from one of the angels. Moses also initiated the 70 elders into the secrets of this doctrine, and they again transmitted them from hand to hand. Of all who formed the unbroken line of tradition, David and Solomon were most initiated into the Kabbalah. See the Kabbalah. According to Eliphas Levi, the 3 greatest books of Kabbalism are the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, the Sefer HaZohar, the Book of Splendor, and the Apocalypse, the Book of Revelation. The dates of the writing of these books are by no means thoroughly established. Kabbalists declare that the Sefer Yetzirah was written by Abraham. Although it is by far the oldest of the Kabbalistic books, it was probably from the pen of the Rabbi Akiba, AD 120. The Sefer HaZohar presumably was written by Simeon ben Jokai, a disciple of Akiba. Rabbi Simeon was sentenced to death about AD 161 by Lucius Verus, co-regent of the Emperor Mark Aurelius Antoninus. He escaped with his son and, hiding in a cave, transcribed the manuscript of the Zohar with the assistance of Elias, who appeared to them at intervals. Simeon was 12 years in the cave, during which time he evolved the complicated symbolism of the greater face and the lesser face. While discoursing with disciples, Rabbi Simeon expired, and the lamp of Israel was extinguished. His death and burial were accompanied by many supernatural phenomena. The legend goes on to relate that the secret doctrines of Kabbalism had been in existence since the beginning of the world, but that Rabbi Simeon was the first man permitted to reduce them to writing. 1,200 years later, the books which he had compiled were discovered and published for the benefit of humanity by Moses de Leon. The probability is that Moses de Leon himself compiled the Zohar about AD 1305, drawing his material from the unwritten secrets of earlier Jewish mystics. The Apocalypse, accredited to St. John the Divine, is also of uncertain date, and the identity of its author has never been satisfactorily proved. Because of its brevity and because it is the key to Kabbalistic thought, the Sefer Yetzirah is reproduced in full in this chapter. So far as is known, the Sefer HaZohar has never been completely translated into English, but it can be obtained in French. S.L. MacGregor Mathers translated 3 books of the Zohar into English. The Zohar contains a vast number of philosophical tenets, and a paraphrase of its salient points is embodied in this work. The 72 Names of God, from Kircher's Sedipus Egyptiacus. This rare cut shows the name of God in 72 languages inscribed upon the petals of a symbolic sunflower. Above the circle are the 72 powers of God, according to the Hebrew Kabbalah. Below 2 trees, that on the left bearing the symbols of the planets, and that on the right the signs of the zodiac and the names of the tribes of Israel. The esoteric doctrines of the Kabbalah are in alignment with the secret teachings of all the schools of philosophy, but the method by which its secrets are revealed to the wise and concealed from the ignorant is most unusual. As the religious world interprets its scriptures with 20th century educational facilities, it becomes ever more apparent that the sacred books were not historical documents, but that the kings, sages, prophets, and saviors whom Bible students ham-revered for ages as once-existing personalities are in reality only personified attributes of man himself. Few realize the influence exerted by Kabbalism over medieval thought, both Christian and Jewish. It taught that there existed within the sacred writings a hidden doctrine which was the key to those writings. This is symbolized by the crossed keys upon the papal crest. Scores of learned minds began to search for those arcane truths by which the race should be redeemed, and that their labor was not without its reward, their subsequent writings have demonstrated. The theories of Kabbalism are inextricably interwoven with the tenets of alchemy, Hermeticism, Rosicrucianism, and Freemasonry. The words Kabbalism and Hermeticism are now considered as synonymous terms covering all the arcana and esotericism of antiquity. The simple Kabbalism of the first centuries of the Christian era gradually evolved into an elaborate theological system, which became so involved that it was next to impossible to comprehend its dogma. The Kabbalists divided the uses of their sacred science into 5 sections. The natural Kabbalah was used solely to assist the investigator in his study of nature's mysteries. The analogical Kabbalah was formulated to exhibit the relationship which exists between all things in nature, and it revealed to the wise that all creatures and substances were one in essence, and that man, the little universe, was a replica in miniature of God, the great universe. The contemplative Kabbalah was evolved for the purpose of revealing, through the higher intellectual faculties, the mysteries of the celestial spheres. By its aid, the abstract reasoning faculties cognized the measureless planes of infinity and learned to know the creatures existing within them. The astrological Kabbalah instructed those who studied its lore in the power, magnitude, and actual substance of the sidereal bodies, and also revealed the mystical constitution of the planet itself. The 5th, or magical Kabbalah, was studied by such as desired to gain control over the demons and subhuman intelligences of the invisible worlds. It was also highly valued as a method of healing the sick by talismans, amulets, charms, and invocations. The Sefer Yetzirah, according to Adolf Frank, differs from other sacred books in that it does not explain the world and the phenomena of which it is the stage by leaning on the idea of God or by setting itself up as the interpreter of the supreme will. This ancient work rather reveals God by estimating his manifold handiwork. In preparing the Sefer Yetzirah for the consideration of the reader, 5 separate English translations have been compared. The resulting form, while it embodies the salient features of each, is not a direct translation from any one Hebrew or Latin text. Although the purpose was to convey the spirit rather than the letter of the ancient document, there are no wide deviations from the original rendition. So far as known, the first translation of the Sefer Yetzirah into English was made by the Rev. Dr. Isidore Kalish in 1877. See Arthur Edward Waite. In this translation, the Hebrew text accompanies the English words. The work of Dr. Kalish has been used as the foundation of the following interpretation, but material from other authorities has been incorporated, and many passages have been rewritten to simplify the general theme. At hand also was a manuscript copy in English of the Book of the Kabbalistic Art by Dr. John Pister. The document is undated, but judging from the general type of the writing, the copy was made during the 18th century. The third volume used as a reference was the Sefer Yetzirah by the late Wynne Westcott, Magus of the Rosicrucian Society of England. The fourth was the Sefer Yetzirah, or the Book of Creation, according to the translation in the Sacred Books and Early Literature of the East, edited by Professor Charles F. Horn. The fifth was a recent publication, the Book of Formation by Newt Stenring, containing an introduction by Arthur Edward Waite. At hand also were 4 other copies, 2 German, 1 Hebrew, and 1 Latin. Certain portions of the Sefer Yetzirah are considered older and more authentic than the rest, where the controversy regarding them is involved and non-productive that it is useless to add further comment. The doubtful passages are therefore included in the document at the points where they would naturally fall. The Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation. Chapter 1. Yah, the Lord of hosts, the living Elohim, King of the universe, omnipotent, the merciful and gracious God, supreme and extolled, dweller in the height whose habitation is eternity, who is sublime and most holy, engraved his name and ordained, formed, and created the universe in 32 mysterious paths, stages of wisdom science, by 3 Sephirim, namely, numbers, letters, and sounds, which are in him one and the same. 10 Sephiroth, 10 properties from the Ineffable One, and 22 letters are the foundation of all things. Of these 22 letters, 3 are called mothers, sewn double, and 12 simple. 3. The 10 numbers, Sephiroth, out of nothing, are analogous to the 10 fingers and the 10 toes, 5 over against 5. In the center between them is the covenant with the only one God. In the spiritual world, it is the covenant of the voice, the word, and in the corporeal world, the circumcision of the flesh, the rite of Abraham. 4. 10 are the numbers of the Sephiroth, out of nothing. 10, not 9. 10, not 11. Comprehend this great wisdom. Understand this knowledge and be wise. Inquire into the mystery and ponder it. Examine all things by means of the 10 Sephiroth. Restore the word to its creator and lead the creator back to his throne again. He is the only formator, and beside him there is no other. His attributes are 10 and are without limit. 5. The 10 ineffable Sephiroth have 10 infinitudes, which are as follows: the infinite beginning and the infinite end, the infinite good and the infinite evil, the infinite height and the infinite depth, the infinite east and the infinite west, the infinite north and the infinite south, and over them is the Lord superlatively one, the faithful King. He rules over all in all from his holy habitation for ages of ages. 6. The appearance of the 10 spheres, Sephiroth, out of nothing, is as a flash of lightning or a sparkling flame, and they are without beginning or end. The word of God is in them when they go forth and when they return. They run by his order like a whirlwind and prostrate themselves before his throne. 7. The 10 Sephiroth have their end linked to their beginning, and their beginning linked to their end, co-joined as the flame is wedded to the live coal, for the Lord is superlatively one, and to him there is no second. Before 1, what can you count? 8. Concerning the number 10 of the spheres of existence, Sephiroth, out of nothing, seal up your lips and guard your heart as you consider them, And if your month opens for utterance and your heart turns towards thought, control them, returning to silence. So it is written, and the living creatures ran and returned, Ezekiel I-14. And on this wise was the covenant made with us, 9. These are the 10 emanations of number out of nothing. First, the spirit of the living Elohim. Blessed and more than blessed be the living Elohim of ages. His voice, his spirit, and his word are the Holy Spirit. Second, he produced air from the spirit and in the air. He formed and established 22 sounds, the letters. 3 of them were fundamental, or mothers, 7 were double, and 12 were simple, single, but the spirit is the first one and above all. Third, primordial water, he extracted from the air. He formed therein 22 letters and established them out of mud and loam, making them like a border, putting them up like a wall, and surrounding them as with a rampart. He poured snow upon them, and it became earth, as it reads. He said to the snow, Be thou or 6. Fourth, fire, ether. He drew forth from the water. He engraved and established by it the throne of glory. He fashioned the seraphim, the ophanim, and the holy living creatures, cherubim, as his ministering angels, and with of these 3 he formed his habitation, as it reads, who made his angels spirits, his ministers a flaming fire. Psalm Siv. Fifth, he selected 3 consonants, from the simple ones, a secret belonging to the 3 mothers, or first elements, Sa, Amesh, air, water, fire, ether. He sealed them with his spirit and fashioned them into a great name, and with this sealed the universe in 6 directions. He turned towards the above and sealed the height with 1 mem, IHV. Sixth, he turned towards the below and sealed the depth with 1 HIV. Seventh, he turned forward and sealed the east with VN, VIH. Eighth, he turned backward and sealed the west with 1 VHI. Ninth, he turned to the right and sealed the south with 1 NIVH. 10th, he turned to the left and sealed the north with N11 HVI. Note, this arrangement of the letters of the great name is according to the Rev. Dr. Isidore Kalish. 10. These are the 10 ineffable existences out of nothing. From the spirit of the living God emanated air, from the air, water, from the water, fire, ether, from the fire, the height and the depth, the east and the west, the north and the south. Chapter 2. 1. There are 22 basic sounds and letters. 3 are the first elements, water, air, fire, fundamentals, or mothers. 7 are double letters, and 12 are simple letters. The 3 fundamental letters XA-IF have as their basis the balance. At one end of the scale are the virtues, and at the other the vices, placed in equilibrium by the tongue. Of the fundamental letters, M is mute like the water, L-esh, hissing like fire, X, A, a reconciling breath between them. 2. The 22 basic letters having been designed, appointed, and established by God, he combined, weighed, and exchanged them, each with the others, and formed by them all beings which are in existence, and all which will be formed in time to come. 3. Established 22 basic letters, formed by the voice and impressed upon the air by the breath. He set them to be audibly uttered in 5 different parts of the human mouth, namely gutturals, XNN57, palatals, 31NP, linguals, 1AS3N dentals, RWOIF, labials, MAQ. 4. He fixed the 22 basic letters in a ring, sphere, like a wall with 231 gates, and turned the sphere forward and backward. Turned forward, the sphere signified good, when reversed, evil. 3 letters may serve for an illustration. There is nothing better than $73.30 pleasure, joy, and nothing worse than 3317 NGO, plague, sorrow. 5. How was it all accomplished? He combined, weighed, and changed the XA with all the other letters in succession, and all the others again with XA, and all again with 3B, and so with the whole series of letters. Hence it follows that there are 231 formations, or gates, through which the powers of the letters go forth. Every creature and every language proceeded from one name and the combinations of its letters. 6. He created a reality out of nothing. He called the non-entity into existence and hewed colossal pillars from intangible air. This has been shown by the example of combining the letter X, A, with all the other letters, and all the other letters with X. By speaking, he created every creature and every word by the power of one name. As an illustration, Consider the 22 elementary substances from the primitive substance of X. The production of every creature from the 22 letters is proof that they are in reality the 22 parts of one living body. Chapter 3. 1. The first three elements, the mother letters, xa if, resemble a balance, in one scale virtue and in the other vice, placed in equilibrium by the tongue. 2. The three mothers, zaif, enclose a great, wonderful, and unknown mystery, and are sealed by 6 wings, or elementary circles, namely air, water, fire, each divided into an active and a passive power. The mothers, zaif, gave birth to the fathers, the progenitors, and these gave birth to the generations. 3. God appointed and established 3 mothers, xs, combined, weighed and exchanged them, forming by them 3 mothers in the universe, in the year, and in man, male and female. 4. The 3 mothers, X-tai, in the universe are air, water, and fire. Heaven was created from the elementary fire, or ether, L-pound, the earth, comprising sea and land, from the elementary water, A, and the atmospheric air from the elementary air, or spirit, X, which establishes the balance among them. Thus were all things produced. 5. The 3 mothers, Zaif, produce in the year heat, coldness, and the temperate state. Heat was created from fire, coldness from water, and the temperate state from air, which equilibrates them. 6. The 3 mothers, Zaif, produce in man, male and female, breast, abdomen, and head. The head was formed from the fire, the abdomen from the water, A, and the breast, thorax, from air, X, which places them in equilibrium. 7. God let the letter XA predominate in primordial air, crowned it, combined it with the other 2, and sealed the air in the universe, the temperate state in the year, and the breast in man, male and female. 8. He let the letter M predominate in primordial water, crowned it, combined it with the other 2, and sealed the earth in the universe, including land and sea, coldness in the year, and the abdomen in man, male and female. 9. He let the letter L-pound-esh predominate in primordial fire, crowned it, combined it with the other 2, and sealed heaven in the universe, heat in the year, and the head of man, male and female. Chapter 4.1. The 7 double letters, B, G, P, R, T, have a duplicity of pronunciation, 2 voices, aspirated and unaspirated, namely 9N, 1199, TT, J. They serve as a model of softness and hardness, strength and weakness. 2. The 7 double letters symbolize wisdom, riches, fertility, life, power, peace, and grace. 3. The 7 double letters also signify the antitheses to which human life is exposed. The opposite of wisdom is foolishness, of riches, poverty, of fertility, sterility, of life, death, of power, servitude, of peace, war, and of beauty, deformity. 4. The 7 double letters point out the 6 dimensions, height, depth, east and west, north and south, and the holy temple in the center, which sustains them all. 5. The double letters are 7 and not 6. They are 7 and not 8. Reflect upon this fact, search into it, and reveal its hidden mystery, and place the Creator on his throne again. 6. The 7 double letters having been designed, established, purified, weighed, and exchanged by God, he formed of them 7 planets in the universe, 7 days in the year, and 7 gateways of the senses in man, male and female. From these 7 he also produced 7 heavens, 7 earths, and 7 Sabbaths. Therefore he loved 7 more than any other number beneath his throne. 7. The 7 planets in the universe are Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Moon. The 7 days in the year are the 7 days of the week. Possibly the 7 creative days are meant. The 7 gateways in man, male and female, are 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, and the mouth. 8. Note: Knut Stenring differs from other authorities in his arrangement of the planets and days of the week in the following 7 stanzas. Kircher has still a different order. Rev. Dr. Isidore Kalish, Bubwin Westcott, and the sacred books and early literature of the East adopt the following arrangement. First, he caused the letter. 3. To predominate in wisdom, crowned it, combined each with the others, and formed by them the moon in the universe, the first day in the year, and the right eye in man, male and female. Second, he caused the letter G to predominate in riches, crowned it, combined each with the others, and formed by them Mars in the universe, the second day in the year, and the right ear in man, male and female. Third, he caused the letter D to predominate in fertility, crowned it, combined each with the others, and formed by them the sun in the universe, the third day in the year, and the right nostril in man, male and female. Fourth, he caused the letter K to predominate in life, crowned it, combined each with the others, and formed by them Venus in the universe, the fourth day in the year, and the left eye in man, male and female. Fifth, he caused the letter P to predominate in power, crowned it, combined each with the others, and formed by them Mercury in the universe, the fifth day in the year, and the left ear in man, male and female. Sixth, he caused the letter R to predominate in peace, crowned it, combined each with the others, and formed by them Saturn in the universe, the sixth day in the year, and the left nostril in man, male and female. Seventh, he caused the letter Th to predominate in grace, crowned it, combined each with the others, and formed by them Jupiter in the universe, the seventh day in the year, and the mouth of man, male and female. 9. With the 7 double letters, he also designed 7 earths, 7 heavens, 7 continents, 7 seas, 7 rivers, 7 deserts, 7 days, 7 weeks, from Passover to Pentecost, and in the midst of them his holy palace. There is a cycle of 7 years, and the 7th is the release year, and after 7 release years is the Jubilee. For this reason, God loves the number 7 more than any other thing under the heavens. 10. In this manner, God joined the 7 double letters together. 2 stones build 2 houses, 3 stones build 6 houses, 4 stones build 24 houses, 5 stones build 120 houses, 6 stones build 720 houses, and 7 stones build 5,040 houses. Make a beginning according to this arrangement, and reckon further than the mouth can express or the ear can hear. Chapter 5.1. The 12 simple letters N, ITN 13, 1B30, VX, PH, VZ, CH, T, IL, and SOTQ symbolize the 12 fundamental properties: speech, thought, movement, sight, hearing, work, coition, smell, sleep, anger, taste or swallowing, and mirth. 2. The simple letters correspond to 12 directions: east height, northeast, east depth, south height, southeast, south depth, west height, southwest, west depth, north height, northwest, north depth. They diverge to all eternity and are the arms of the universe. 3. The simple letters having been designed, established, weighed, and exchanged by God, he produced by them 12 zodiacal signs in the universe, 12 months in the year, and 12 chief organs in human body, male and female. 4. The signs of the zodiac are Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. The months of the year are Nisan, Lyre, Sivan, Tammuz, Ab, Elul, Tisri, Marcheshvan, Kislev, Tebet, Sabat, and Adar. The organs of the human body are 2 hands, 2 feet, 2 kidneys, gall, small intestine, liver, esophagus, stomach, and spleen. 5. Note: in the following 12 stanzas, Knut Stenring again differs, this time as to the arrangement of properties. First, God caused the letter H to predominate in speech, crowned it, combined it with the others, and fashioned by them Aries, the ram, in the universe, the month Nisan in the year, and the right foot of the human body, male and female. Second, he caused the letter V to predominate in thought, crowned it, combined it with the others, and fashioned by them Taurus, the bull, in the universe, the month Lyre in the year, and the right kidney of the human body, male and female. Third, he caused the letter Z to predominate in movement, crowned it, combined it with the others, and fashioned by them Gemini, the twins, in the universe, the month Sivan in the year, and the left foot of the human body, male and female. Fourth, he caused the letter CH to predominate in sight, crowned it, combined it with the others, and fashioned by them Cancer, the crab, in the universe, the month Tammuz in the year, and the right hand of the human body, male and female. Fifth, he caused the letter T to predominate in hearing, crowned it, combined it with the others, and fashioned by them Leo, the lion, in the universe, the month Ab in the year, and the left kidney of the human body, male and female. Sixth, he caused the letter I to predominate in work, crowned it, combined it with the others, and fashioned by them Virgo, the virgin, in the universe, the month Elul in the year, and the left hand of the human body, male and female. Seventh, he caused the letter L to predominate in coition, crowned it, combined it with the others, and fashioned by them Libra, the balance, in the universe, the month Tisri in the year, and the gall of the human body, male and female. Eighth, he caused the letter N to predominate in smell, crowned it, combined it with the others, and fashioned by them Scorpio, the scorpion, in the universe, the month Marcheshvan in the year, and the small intestine in the human body, male and female. Ninth, he caused the letter S to predominate in sleep, crowned it, combined it with the others, and fashioned by them Sagittarius, the archer, in the universe, the month Kislev in the year, and the stomach in the human body, male and female. 10th, he caused the letter O to predominate in anger, crowned it, combined it with the others, and fashioned by them Capricorn the goat in the universe, the month Tebet in the year, and the liver in the human body, male and female. 11th, he caused the letter T's to predominate in taste or swallowing, crowned it, combined it with the others, and fashioned by them Aquarius, the water-bearer, in the universe, the month Sabbat in the year, and the esophagus in the human body, male and female. 12th, he caused the letter Q to predominate in mirth, crowned it, combined it with the others, and fashioned by them Pisces, the fishes, in the universe, the month Adar in the year, and the spleen in the human body, male and female. 6. He made them as a conflict. He arranged them as provinces and drew them up like a wall. He armed them and set one against another as in warfare. The Elohim did likewise in the other spheres. Chapter 6:1. There are three mothers or first elements, SB, Amsh, from which emanated three fathers, progenitors, primordial, spiritual air, water, and fire, from which issued the 7 planets heavens with their angels and the 12 oblique points, zodiac. 2. To prove this, there are 3 faithful witnesses, the universe, the year, and man. There are the 12, the balance, and the 7. Above is the dragon, below is the world, and lastly the heart of man, and in the midst is God who regulates them all. 3. The first elements are air, water, and fire. The fire is above, the water is below, and a breath of air establishes balance between them. The token is, the fire carries the water. The letters M is mute, Esh is hissing like fire. There is A among them, a breath of air which reconciles the two. 4. The dragon, Tali, is in the universe like a king upon his throne. The celestial sphere is in the year like a king in his empire, and the heart is in the body of men like a king in warfare. 5. God also set the opposites against each other, the good against the evil, and the evil against the good. Good proceeds from good, evil from evil. The good purifies the bad the good. The good is reserved for the good, and the evil for the wicked. 6. There are 3 of which each stands by itself. One is in the affirmative, filled with good, one is in the negative, filled with evil, and the third equilibrates them. 7. There are 7 divided 3 against 3, and one in the midst of them, balance. 12 stand in warfare. 3 produce love, and 3 hatred. 3 are life-givers, and 3 are destroyers. 8. The 3 that cause love are the heart and the 2 ears. The 3 that produce hatred are the liver, the gall, and the tongues. The 3 life-givers are the 2 nostrils and the spleen. And the 3 destroyers are the mouth and the 2 lower openings of the body. Over all these rules God, the faithful King, from his holy habitation in all eternity. God is 1 above 3, 3 are above 7, 7 are above 12, yet all are linked together. 9. There are 22 letters by which the I Am, Yah, the Lord of hosts, almighty and eternal, designed and created by 3 Sephirim, numbers, letters, and sounds, his universe, and formed by them all creatures and all those things that are yet to come. 10. When the patriarch Abraham had comprehended the great truths, meditated upon them, and understood them perfectly, the Lord of the universe, the Tetragrammaton, appeared to him, called him his friend, kissed him upon the head, and made with him a covenant. First, the covenant was between the 10 fingers of his hands, which is the covenant of the tongue, spiritual. Second, the covenant was between the 10 toes of his feet, which is the covenant of circumcision, material. And God said of him, before Abraham bound the spirit of the 22 letters, the Torah, upon his tongue, and God disclosed to him their secrets. God permitted the letters to be immersed in water. He burned them in the fire and imprinted them upon the winds. He distributed them among the 7 planets and gave them to the 12 zodiacal signs. Fundamentals of Kabbalistic cosmology. The Kabbalists conceive of the supreme deity as an incomprehensible principle to be discovered only through the process of eliminating in order all its cognizable attributes. That which remains, when every knowable thing has been removed, is Ein Sof, the eternal state of being. Although indefinable, the absolute permeates all space. Abstract to the degree of inconceivability, Ein Sof is the unconditioned state of all things. Substances, essences, and intelligences are manifested out of the inscrutability of Ein Sof, but the absolute itself is without substance, essence, or intelligence. Ein Sof may be likened to a great field of rich earth out of which rises a myriad of plants, each different in color, formation, and fragrance, yet each with its roots in the same dark loam, which, however, is unlike any of the forms nurtured by it. The plants are universes, gods, and man, all nourished by Ein Sof, and all with their source in one definitionless essence, all with their spirits, souls, and bodies fashioned from this essence, and doomed like the plant to return to the black ground, Ein Sof, the only immortal, whence they came. Ein Sof was referred to by the Kabbalists as the most ancient of all the ancients. It was always considered as sexless. Its symbol was a closed eye. While it may be truly said of Ein Sof that to define it is to defile it, the rabbis postulated certain theories regarding the manner in which Ein Sof projected creations out of itself, and they also assigned to this absolute not being certain symbols as being descriptive, in part at least, of its powers. The nature of Ein Sof they symbolize by a circle, itself emblematic of eternity. This hypothetical circle encloses a dimensionless area of incomprehensible life, and the circular boundary of this life is abstract and measureless infinity. According to this concept, God is not only a center, but also area. Centralization is the first step towards limitation. Therefore, centers which form in the substances of Ein Sof are finite because they are predestined to dissolution back into the cause of themselves, while Ein Sof itself is infinite because it is the ultimate condition of all things. The circular shape given to Ein Sof signifies that space is hypothetically enclosed within a great crystal-like globe, outside of which there is nothing, not even a vacuum. Within this globe, symbolic of Ein Sof, creation and dissolution take place. Every element and principle that will ever be used in the eternities of cosmic birth, growth, and decay is within the transparent substances of this intangible sphere. It is the cosmic egg which is not broken till the great day, be with us, which is the end of the cycle of necessity, when all things return to their ultimate cause. In the process of creation, the diffused life of Ein Sof retires from the circumference to the center of the circle and establishes a point, which is the first manifesting one, the primitive limitation of the all-pervading O. When the divine essence thus retires from the circular boundary to the center, it leaves behind the abyss, or as the Kabbalists term it, the great privation. Thus, in Ein Sof is established a twofold condition where previously had existed but one. The first condition is the central point, the primitive objectified radiance of the eternal subjectified life. About this radiance is darkness caused by the deprivation of the life which is drawn to the center to create the first point, or universal germ. The universal Ein Sof, therefore, no longer shines through space, but rather upon space from an established first point. Isaac Meyer describes this process as follows. The Ein Sof at first was filling all, and then made an absolute concentration into itself, which produced the abyss, deep, or space, the Avir Kadmon, or primitive air, the Azoth, but this is not considered in the Kabbalah as a perfect void or vacuum, a perfectly empty space, but is thought of as the waters or crystalline chaotic sea, in which was a certain degree of light inferior to that by which all the created worlds and hierarchies were made. See the Kabbalah. In the secret teachings of the Kabbalah, it is taught that man's body is enveloped in an ovoid of bubble-like iridescence, which is called the auric egg. This is the causal sphere of man. It bears the same relationship to man's physical body that the globe of Ein Sof bears to its created universes. In fact, this auric egg is the Ein Sof sphere of the entity called man. In reality, therefore, the supreme consciousness of man is in this aura, which extends in all directions and completely encircles his lower bodies. As the consciousness in the cosmic egg is withdrawn into a central point, which is then called God, the Supreme One, so the consciousness in the auric egg of man is concentrated, thereby causing the establishment of a point of consciousness called the ego. As the universes in nature are formed from powers latent in the cosmic egg, so everything used by man in all his incarnations throughout the kingdoms of nature is drawn from the latent powers within his auric egg. Man never passes from this egg. It remains even after death. His births, deaths, and rebirths all take place within it, and it cannot be broken until the lesser day be with us, when mankind, like the universe, is liberated from the wheel of necessity. It should be borne in mind that in the beginning the supreme substance, Aeon, alone permeated the area of the circle. The inner rings had not yet come into manifestation. As the divine essence concentrated itself, the rings X2 and X3 became apprehensible, for Aeon Soph is a limitation of Aeon, and Aeon Soph R, or light, is a still greater limitation. Thus, the nature of the Supreme One is considered to be threefold, and from this threefold nature, the powers and elements of creation were reflected into the abyss, left by the motion of Aeon Soph towards the center of itself. The continual motion of Aeon Soph towards the center of itself resulted in the establishment of the dot in the circle. The dot was called God, as being the supreme individualization of the universal essence. Concerning this, the Zohar says, "When the concealed of the concealed wished to reveal himself, he first made a single point. The infinite was entirely unknown, and diffused no light before this luminous point violently broke through into vision. The name of this point is I Am, called by the Hebrews Ehyeh." The Kabbalists gave many names to this dot. On this subject, Christian D. Ginsburg writes, in substance, "The dot is called the first crown because it occupies the highest position. It is called the aged because it is the first emanation. It is called the primordial or smooth point. It is called the white head, the long face, macroprosophis, and the inscrutable height because it controls and governs all the other emanations. When the white shining point had appeared, it was called Kether, which means the crown, and out of it radiated 9 great globes, which arranged themselves in the form of a tree. These 9, together with the first crown, constituted the first system of Sephiroth. These 10 were the first limitation of 10 abstract points within the nature of Aeon Soph itself. The power of Aeon Soph did not descend into these globes, but rather was reflected upon them, as the light of the sun is reflected upon the earth and planets. These 10 globes were called the shining sapphires, and it is believed by many rabbins that the word sapphire is the basis of the word Sephirah, the singular of Sephiroth. The great area, which had been privated by the withdrawal of Aeon Soph into the central point Kether, was now filled by 4 concentric globes called worlds, or spheres, and the light of the 10 Sephiroth was reflected down through each of these in turn. This resulted in the establishment of 4 symbolical trees, each hearing the reflections of the 10 Sephirothic globes. The 40 spheres of creation out of Ein Sof are divided into 4 great world chains. It is not less astonishing to observe at the beginning of the Zohar the profundity of its notions and the sublime simplicity of its images. It is said as follows: "The science of equilibrium is the key of occult science. Unbalanced forces perish in the void. So passed the kings of the elder world, the princes of the giants. They have fallen like trees without roots, and their place is found no more. Through the conflict of unbalanced forces, the devastated earth was void and formless until the Spirit of God made for itself a place in heaven and reduced the mass of waters. All the aspirations of nature were directed then towards unity of form, towards the living synthesis, if equilibrated forces, the face of God, crowned with light, rose over the vast sea and was reflected in the waters thereof. His 2 eyes were manifested, radiating with splendor, darting 2 beams of light, which crossed with those of the reflection. The brow of God and his eyes formed a triangle in heaven, and its reflection formed a second triangle in the waters. So was revealed the number 6, being that of universal creation." The text, which would be unintelligible in a literal version, is translated here by way of interpretation. The author makes it plain that the human form which he ascribes to deity is only an image of his meaning, and that God is beyond expression by human thought or representation by any figure. Pascal said that God is a circle, of which the center is everywhere and the circumference nowhere. But how is one to imagine a circle apart from its circumference? The Zohar adopts the antithesis of this paradoxical image, and in respect of the circle of Pascal, would say rather that the circumference is everywhere, while that which is nowhere is the center. It is, however, to a balance and not to a circle that it compares the universal equilibrium of things. It affirms that equilibrium is everywhere, and so also is the central point where the balance hangs in suspension. We find that the Zohar is thus more forcible and more profound than Pascal. The Zohar is a genesis of light. The Sefer Yetzirah is a ladder of truth. Therein are expounded the 32 absolute symbols of speech, being numbers and letters. Each letter produces a number, an idea, and a form, so that mathematics are applicable to forms and ideas, even as to numbers, in virtue of an exact proportion and a perfect correspondence. By the science of the Sefer Yetzirah, the human mind is rooted in truth and in reason. It accounts for all progress possible to intelligence by means of the evolution of numbers. Thus does the Zohar represent absolute truth, while the Sefer Yetzirah furnishes the method of its acquisition, its discernment, and application. History of magic. The Tree of the Sephiroth. The Tree of the Sephiroth may be considered an invaluable compendium of the secret philosophy which originally was the spirit and soul of Chassidism. The Kabbalah is the priceless heritage of Israel, but each year those who comprehend its true principles become fewer in number. The Jew of today, if he lacks a realization of the profundity of his people's doctrines, is usually permeated with that most dangerous form of ignorance, modernism, and is prone to regard the Kabbalah either as an evil to be shunned like the plague, or as a ridiculous superstition which has survived the black magic of the Dark Ages. Yet without the key which the Kabbalah supplies, the spiritual mysteries of both the Old and the New Testament must remain unsolved by Jew and Gentile alike. The Sephirothic tree consists of 10 globes of luminous splendor, arranged in 3 vertical columns and connected by 22 channels or paths. The 10 globes are called the Sephiroth, and to them are assigned the numbers I to 10. The 3 columns are called mercy on the right, severity on the left, and between them mildness as the reconciling power. The columns may also be said to represent wisdom, strength, and beauty, which form the triune support of the universe, for it is written that the foundation of all things is the 3. The 22 channels are the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and to them are assigned the major trumps of the tarot deck of symbolic cards. Eliphas Levi declared that by arranging the tarot cards according to a definite order, man could discover all that is knowable concerning his God, his universe, and himself. When the 10 numbers which pertain to the globes, Sephiroth, are combined with the 22 letters relating to the channels, the resultant sum is 32, the number peculiar to the Kabbalistic paths of wisdom. These paths, occasionally referred to as the 32 teeth in the mouth of the vast countenance, or as the 32 nerves that branch out from the divine brain, are analogous to the first 32 degrees of Freemasonry, which elevate the candidate to the dignity of a prince of the royal secret. Kabbalists also consider it extremely significant that in the original Hebrew scriptures, the name of God should occur 32 times in the first chapter of Genesis. In the English translations of the Bible, the name appears 33 times. In the mystic analysis of the human body, according to the rabbins, 32 spinal segments lead upward to the temple of wisdom, the skull. The 4 Kabbalistic trees described in the preceding chapter were combined by later Jewish scholars into one all-inclusive diagram and termed by them not only the Sephirothic, but also the archetypal or heavenly Adam. According to some authorities, it is this heavenly Adam and not a terrestrial man whose creation is described in the opening chapters of Genesis. Out of the substances of this divine man, the universe was formed. In him, it remains and will continue even after dissolution, shall resolve the spheres back into their own primitive substance. The deity is never conceived of as actually contained in the Sephiroth, which are purely hypothetical vessels employed to define the limits of the fall, creative essence. Adolf Frank rather likens the Sephiroth to varicolored transparent glass bowls filled with pure light, which apparently assumes the color of its containers, but whose essential nature remains ever unchanged and unchangeable. It must continually be emphasized that the Sephiroth and the properties assigned to them, like the tetractys of the Pythagoreans, are merely symbols of the cosmic system with its multitude of parts. The truer and fuller meaning of these emblems may not be revealed by writing or by word of mouth, but must be divined as the result of study and meditation. In the Sefer HaZohar, it is written that there is a garment, the written doctrine, which every man may see. Those with understanding do not look upon the garment, but at the body beneath it, the intellectual and philosophical code. The wisest of all, however, the servants of the heavenly King, look at nothing save the soul, the spiritual doctrine, which is the eternal and ever-springing root of the law. Of this great truth, Eliphas Levi also writes, declaring that none can gain entrance to the secret house of wisdom unless he wear the voluminous cape of Apollonius of Tyana and carry in his hand the lamp of Hermes. The cape signifies the qualities of self-possession and self-reliance, which must envelop the seeker as a cloak of strength, while the ever-burning lamp of the sage represents the illumined mind and perfectly balanced intellect, without which the mystery of the ages can never be solved. In the Kabbalistic mysteries, according to Eliphas Levi, the name Jehovah is occasionally written by connecting together 24 dots, the 24 powers before the throne, and it is believed that the name of the power of evil is the sign of Jehovah reversed or inverted. See Transcendental Magic. Of the great word, Albert Pike writes, "The true word of a Mason is to be found in the concealed and profound meaning of the ineffable name of deity, communicated by God to Moses, and which meaning was long lost by the very precautions taken to conceal it. The true pronunciation of that name was in truth a secret, in which, however, was involved the far more profound secret of its meaning. In that meaning is included all the truth that can be known by us in regard to the nature of God." Kabbalistic Keys to the Creation of Man. Henry Stephen, in A World of Wonders, published in 1607, mentions a monk of St. Anthony who declared that while in Jerusalem, the patriarch of that city had shown him not only one of the ribs of the Word made flesh and some rays from the Star of Bethlehem, but also the snout of a seraph, a fingernail of a cherub, the horns of Moses, and a casket containing the breath of Christ. To a people believing implicitly in a seraph sufficiently tangible to have its proboscis preserved, the more profound issues of Judaistic philosophy must necessarily be incomprehensible. Nor is it difficult to imagine the reaction taking place in the mind of some ancient sage should he hear that a cherub, which according to St. Augustine signifies the evangelists, according to Philo Judaeus, the outermost circumference of the entire heavens, and according to several of the church fathers, the wisdom of God, had sprouted fingernails. The hopeless confusion of divine principles with the allegorical figures created to represent them to the limited faculties of the uninitiated has resulted in the most atrocious misconceptions of spiritual truths. Concepts well nigh as preposterous as these, however, still stand as adamantine barriers to a true understanding of Old and New Testament symbolism. For, until man disentangles his reasoning powers from the web of venerated absurdities in which his mind has lain ensnared for centuries, how can truth ever be discovered? The Old Testament, especially the Pentateuch, contains not only the traditional account of the creation of the world and of man, but also, locked within it, the secrets of the Egyptian initiators of the Moses concerning the genesis of the God-man, the initiate, and the mystery of his rebirth through philosophy. While the lawgiver of Israel is known to have compiled several works other than those generally attributed to him, the writings now commonly circulated as the purported 6th and 7th books of Moses are in reality spurious treatises on black magic foisted on the credulous during the Middle Ages. Out of the hundreds of millions of pious and thoughtful students of Holy Writ, it is almost inconceivable that but a mere handful have sensed the sublimity of the esoteric teachings of Sod, the Jewish mysteries of Adonai. Yet familiarity with the three Kabbalistical processes termed Gematria, Notarikon, and Temura makes possible the discovery of many of the profoundest truths of ancient Jewish superphysics. By gematria is meant not only the exchange of letters for their numerical equivalents, but also the method of determining by an analysis of its measurements the mystic purpose for which a building or other object was constructed. S. L. McGregor Mathers, in The Kabbalah Unveiled, gives this example of the application of gematria. Thus also the passage, Genericitate 2, VHNH Eshelsh Vehena Shalisha, and Lo 3 men, equals in numerical value Alv Michael Gibriel Vrpal, Elo Michael Gabriel Ver Raphael. These are Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. For each phrase equals 701. Assuming the sides of a scalene to be 11, 9, and 6 inches, a triangle of such dimensions would then be an appropriate symbol of Jehovah, for the sum of its 3 sides would be 26, the numerical value of the Hebrew word IHVH. Gematria also includes the system of discovering the arcane meaning of a word by analyzing the size and arrangement of the strokes employed in the formation of its various letters. Gematria was employed by the Greeks as well as the Jews. The books of the New Testament, particularly those attributed to St. John, contain many examples of its use. Nicephorus Callistus declared the Gospel according to St. John to have been discovered in a cavern under the temple at Jerusalem, the volume having been secreted long anterior to the Christian Sarah. The existence of interpolated material in the fourth Gospel substantiates the belief that the work was originally written without any specific reference to the man Jesus, the statements therein accredited to him being originally mystical discourses delivered by the personification of the universal mind. The remaining Johannine writings, the epistles and the apocalypse, are enshrouded by a similar veil of mystery. By notaricon, each letter of a word may become the initial character of a new word. Thus, from Brasheth, first word in the book of Genesis, are extracted 6 words which mean that, in the beginning, the Elohim saw that Israel would accept the law. Mr. Brow McGregor Mathers also gives 6 additional examples of notaricon formed from the above word by Solomon Meir ben Moses, a medieval Kabbalist. From the famous acrostic ascribed to the Erythraean Sibyl, St. Augustine derived the word Itye, which by notaricon was expanded into the phrase, Jesus Christ, Son of God, Savior. By another use of notaricon, directly the reverse of the first, the initial, last, or middle letters of the words of a sentence may be joined together to form a new word or words. For example, the name Amen, APV, may be extracted from Tarabuxum, the Lord is the faithful King. Because they had embodied these cryptic devices in their sacred writings, the ancient priests admonished their disciples never to translate, edit, or rewrite the contents of the sacred books. Under the general heading of Temura, several systems may be grouped and explained in which various letters are substituted for other letters according to prearranged tables or certain mathematical arrangements of letters, regular or irregular. Thus, the alphabet may be broken into 2 equal parts and written in horizontal lines so that the letters of the lower row can be exchanged for those of the upper row, or vice versa. By this procedure, the letters of the word kuzu may be exchanged for those of IHVH, the tetragrammaton. In another form of Temura, the letters are merely rearranged. PN is the stone which is found in the center of the world, from which point the earth spread out on all sides. When broken in 2, the stone is Wen, which means the placing of God. See Pakude Rakov, 7172. Again, Temura may consist of a simple anagram, as in the English word live, which reversed becomes evil. The various systems of Temura are among the most complicated and profound devices of the ancient rabbins. Does the mutilated condition of the Holy Bible, in part accidental, represent, nonetheless, a definite effort to confuse the uninitiated reader and thus better conceal the secrets of the Jewish Tanamel? Never has the Christian world been in possession of those hidden scrolls which contain the secret doctrine of Israel. And if the Kabbalists were correct in their assumption that the lost books of the Mosaic mysteries have been woven into the fabric of the Torah, then the scriptures are veritably books within books. In rabbinical circles, the opinion is prevalent that Christendom never has understood the Old Testament and probably never will. In fact, the feeling exists, in some quarters at least, that the Old Testament is the exclusive possession of the Jewish faith. Also, that Christianity, after its unrelenting persecution of the Jew, takes unwarranted liberties when it includes strictly Jewish writings in its sacred canon. But, as noted by one rabbi, if Christianity must use the Jewish scriptures, it should at least strive to do so with some degree of intelligence. In the opening chapter of Genesis, it is stated that after creating light and separating it from darkness, the 7 Elohim divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. Having thus established the inferior universe in perfect accord with the esoteric teachings of the Hindu, Egyptian, and Greek mysteries, the Elohim next turned their attention to the production of flora and fauna, and lastly man. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." So God created man in his own image, in the image of God created he hint, male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth." Consider in thoughtful silence the startling use of pronouns in the above extract from the most perfect example of English literature. When the plural and androgynous Hebrew word Elohim was translated into the singular and sexless word God, the opening chapters of Genesis were rendered comparatively meaningless. It may have been feared that had the word been correctly translated as the male and female creative agencies, the Christians would have been justly accused of worshiping a plurality of gods in the face of their repeated claims to monotheism. The plural form of the pronouns us and our reveals unmistakably, however, the pantheistic nature of divinity. Further, the androgynous constitution of the Elohim, God, is disclosed in the next verse, where he, referring to God, is said to have created man in his own image, male and female, or, more properly, as the Gal. Division of the sexes had not yet taken place, male-female. This is a death blow to the time-honored concept that God is a masculine potency, as portrayed by Michelangelo on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. The Elohim then order these androgynous beings to be fruitful. Note that neither the masculine nor the feminine principle as yet existed in a separate state. And lastly, note the word replenish. The prefix re denotes back to an original or former state or position, or repetition or restoration. See Webster's International Dictionary, 1926. This definite reference to a humanity existing prior to the creation of man, described in Genesis, must be evident to the most casual reader of Scripture. An examination of Bible dictionaries, encyclopedias, and commentaries discloses the plural form of the word Elohim to be beyond the comprehension of their respected authors and editors. The New Schaff-Herzog Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge thus sums up the controversy over the plural form of the word Elohim. Does it now, or did it originally signify plurality of divine being? A dictionary of the Bible, edited by James Hastings, contains the following conclusion, which echoes the sentiments of more critical etymologists of the Bible. The use of the plur, Elohim, is also difficult to explain. Dr. Havernick considers the plural form Elohim to signify the abundance and super-richness existing in the divine being. His statement, which appears in the Popular and Critical Bible Encyclopedia, is representative of the efforts made to circumvent this extremely damaging word. The International Standard Bible Dictionary considers the explanations offered by modern theologians, of which Dr. Havernick's is a fair example, to be too ingenious to have been conceived by the early Hebrews, and maintains that the word represents the survival of a polytheistic stage of Semitic thought. The Jewish Encyclopedia supports the latter assumption with the following concise statement. As far as epigraphic material, traditions, and folklore throw light on the question, the Semites are shown to be of polytheistic leanings. Various schools of philosophy, both Jewish and Gentile, have offered explanations erudite and otherwise of the identity of Adam. In this primordial man, the Neoplatonists recognized the Platonic idea of humanity, the archetype or pattern of the genus Homo. Philo-Judaeus considered Adam to represent the human mind, which could understand, and hence give names to, the creatures about it, but could not comprehend, and hence left nameless, the mystery of its own nature. Adam was also likened to the Pythagorean monad, which by virtue of its state of perfect unity could dwell in the Edenic sphere. When through a process akin to fission, the monad became the duad, the proper symbol of discord and delusion, the creature thus formed was exiled from its celestial home. Thus the twofold man was driven from the paradise belonging to the undivided creation, and cherubim and a flaming sword were placed on guard at the gates of the causal world. Consequently, only after the re-establishment of unity within himself can man regain his primal spiritual state. According to the Isurim, the secret doctrine of Israel taught the existence of 4 atoms, each dwelling in one of the four Kabbalistic worlds. The first, or heavenly, Adam dwelt alone in the Atzilithic sphere, and within his nature existed all spiritual and material potentialities. The second Adam resided in the sphere of Brahma. Like the first Adam, this being was androgynous, and the 10th division of its body, its heel, Malchuth, corresponded to the church of Israel that shall bruise the serpent's head. The third Adam, likewise androgynous, was clothed in a body of light and abode in the sphere of Yetzirah. The fourth Adam was merely the third Adam after the fall into the sphere of Asaya, at which time the spiritual man took upon himself the animal shell or coat of skins. The fourth Adam was still considered as a single individual, though division had taken place within his nature and two shells or physical bodies existed, in one of which was incarnated the masculine and in the other the feminine potency. For further details, consult Isaac Meyer. The universal nature of Adam is revealed in the various accounts concerning the substances of which he was formed. It was originally ordained that the dirt to be used in fashioning him was to be derived from the seven worlds. As these planes, however, refused to give of their substances, the Creator wrenched from them by force the elements to be employed in the Adamic constitution. St. Augustine discovered a notaricon in the name of Adam. He showed that the four letters, Adam, are the first letters of the four words Anatole, Dices, Arctos, Mesembria, the Greek names for the four comers of the world. The same author also sees in Adam a prototype of Christ, for he writes, Adam sleeps that Eve may be formed, Christ dies, that the church may be formed. While Adam sleeps, Eve is formed from his side. When Christ is dead, his side is smitten with a spear, that there flow forth sacraments to form the church. Adam himself was the figure of him that was to come. In his recent work, Judaism, George Foot Moore thus describes the proportions of the Adamic man. He was a huge mass that filled the whole world to all the points of the compass. The dust of which his body was formed was gathered from every part of the world, or from the site of the future altar. Of greater interest is the notion that man was created androgynous, because it is probably a bit of foreign lore adapted to the first pair in Genesis. R. Samuel Bar Naaman, 3rd century, said, when God created Adam, he created him facing both ways, T1 divide D. Then he sawed him in two and made two backs, one for each figure. The Zohar holds the concept of two Adams, the first a divine being who, stepping forth from the highest original darkness, created the second, or earthly Adam, in his own image. The higher, or celestial man was the causal sphere, with its divine potencies and guan, potentialities considered as a gigantic personality. Its members, according to the Gnostics, being the basic elements of existence. This Adam may have been symbolized as facing both ways to signify that with one face it looked upon the proximate cause of itself, and with the other face looked upon the vast sea of cosmos into which it was to be immersed. Philosophically, Adam may be regarded as representative of the full spiritual nature of man, androgynous and nor subject to decay. Of this fuller nature, the mortal man has little comprehension. Just as spirit contains matter within itself and is both the source and ultimate of the state-denominated matter, so Eve represents the lower or mortal portion that is taken out of or has temporal existence in the greater and fuller spiritual creation. Being representative of the inferior part of the individual, Eve is the temptress who, conspiring with the serpent of mortal knowledge, caused Adam to sink into a trance-like condition in which he was unconscious of his own higher self. When Adam seemingly awoke, he actually sank into sleep, for he no longer was in the spirit but in the body. Division having taken place within him, the true Adam rested in paradise, while his lesser part incarnated in a material organism, Eve, and wandered in the darkness of mortal existence. The followers of Muhammad apparently sensed more accurately than the uninitiated of other sects the true mystic import of paradise, for they realized that prior to his fall, the dwelling place of man was not in a physical garden in any particular part of the earth, but rather in a higher sphere, the angelic world, watered by four mystical streams of life. After his banishment from paradise, Adam alighted on the island of Ceylon, and this spot is sacred to certain Hindu sects who recognize the old island of Lanka, once presumably connected with the mainland by a bridge, as the actual site of the Garden of Eden from which the human race migrated. According to the Arabian Nights, Sir Richard Burton's translation, Adam's footprint may still be seen on the top of a Ceylonese mountain. In the Islamic legends, Adam was later reunited with his wife, and after his death, his body was brought to Jerusalem subsequent to the flood for burial by Melchizedek. See the Quran. The word ADM signifies a species or race, and only for lack of proper understanding has Adam been considered as an individual. As the macrocosm, Adam is the gigantic androgen, even the demiurgus. As the microcosm, he is the chief production of the demiurgus, and within the nature of the microcosm, the demiurgus established all the qualities and powers which he himself possessed. The demiurgus, however, did not possess immortality, and therefore could not bestow it upon Adam. According to legend, the demiurgus strove to keep man from learning the incompleteness of his maker. The Adamic man consequently partook of the qualities and characteristics of the angels who were the ministers of the demiurgus. It was affirmed by the Gnostic Christians that the redemption of humanity was assured through the descent of Nu, universal mind, who was a great spiritual being superior to the demiurgus and who, entering into the constitution of man, conferred conscious immortality upon the demiurgic fabrications. That phallic symbolism occupies an important place in early Jewish mysticism is indisputable. Hargrave Jennings sees in the figure of Adam a type of the lingam of Shiva, which was a stone representative of the creative power of the world generator. This interpretation somewhat clarifies the Kabbalistic assertion that in the first Adam were contained all the souls of the Israelites. See Sod. Though according to the Aurea Legenda, Adam was buried with the 3 seeds of the tree of knowledge in his mouth, it should be borne in mind that apparently conflicting myths were often woven around a single individual. One of the profound mysteries of Kabbalism is that set forth in the Notoricon based upon the letters of the name Adam, ADM. These 3 letters form the initials of the names Adam, David, and the Messiah, and these 3 personalities were said to contain one soul. As this soul represents the world soul of humanity, Adam signifies the involving soul, the Messiah the evolving soul, and David that condition of the soul termed epigenesis. In common with certain philosophic institutions of Asia, the Jewish mysteries contained a strange doctrine concerning the shadows of the gods. Gazing down into the abyss, the Elohim beheld their own shadows, and from these shadows patterned the inferior creation. In the dramatic representation of the creation of man in the Mysteries, writes the anonymous master of Balliol College, the Elohim, were represented by men who, when sculpturing the form of an Adamite being, of a man, traced the outline of it on their own shadow, or modeled it on their own shadow traced on the wall. This is how the art of drawing originated in Egypt, and the hieroglyphic figures carved on the Egyptian monuments have so little relief that they still resemble a shadow. In the ritualism of the early Jewish mysteries, the pageantry of creation was enacted, the various actors impersonating the creative agencies. The red dirt from which the Adamic man was fashioned may signify fire, particularly since Adam is related to the Yod, or fire flame, which is the first letter of the sacred name Jehovah. In John 2:20, it is written that the temple was 46 years in the building, a statement in which St. Augustine sees a secret and sacred gematria, for according to the Greek philosophy of numbers, the numerical value of the name Adam is 46. Adam thus becomes the type of the temple, for the house of God, like primitive man, was a microcosm or epitome of the universe. In the Mysteries, Adam is accredited with having the peculiar power of spiritual generation. Instead of reproducing his kind by the physical generative processes, he caused to issue from himself, or, more correctly, to be reflected upon substance, a shadow of himself. This shadow he then ensouled, and it became a living creature. These shadows, however, remain only as long as the original figure of which they are the reflections endures, for with the removal of the original, the host of likenesses vanish with it. Herein is he key to the allegorical creation of Eve out of the side of Adam. For Adam, representative of the idea or pattern, is reflected into the material universe as a multitude of ensouled images, which collectively are designated Eve. According to another theory, the division of the sexes took place in the archetypal sphere. Hence, the shadows in the lower world were divided into two classes consistent with the orders established in the archetype. In the apparently incomprehensible attraction of one sex for the other, Plato recognized a cosmic urge toward reunion of the severed halves of this archetypal being. Exactly what is to be inferred by the division of the sexes, as symbolically described in Genesis, is a much debated question. That man was primarily androgynous is quite universally conceded, and it is a reasonable presumption that he will ultimately regain this bisexual state. As to the manner in which this will be accomplished, two opinions are advanced. One school of thought affirms that the human soul was actually divided into two parts, male and female, and that man remains an unperfected creature until these parts are reunited through the emotion which man calls love. From this concept has grown the much-abused doctrine of soulmates, who must quest through the ages until the complementary part of each severed soul is discovered. The modem concept of marriage is to a certain degree founded upon this ideal. According to the other school, the so-called division of the sexes resulted from suppression of one pole of the androgynous being in order that the vital energies manifesting through it might be diverted to development of the rational faculties. From this point of view, man is still actually androgynous and spiritually complete, but in the material world, the feminine part of man's nature and the masculine part of woman's nature are quiescent. Through spiritual unfoldment and knowledge imparted by the mysteries, however, the latent element in each nature is gradually brought into activity, and ultimately the human being thus regains sexual equilibrium. By this theory, woman is elevated from the position of being man's errant part to one of complete equality. From this point of view, marriage is regarded as a companionship in which two complete individualities, manifesting opposite polarities, are brought into association, that each may thereby awaken the qualities latent in the other, and thus assist in the attainment of individual completeness. The first theory may be said to regard marriage as an end, the second as a means to an end. The deeper schools of philosophy have leaned toward the latter as more adequately acknowledging the infinite potentialities of divine completeness in both aspects of creation. The Christian Church is fundamentally opposed to the theory of marriage, claiming that the highest degree of spirituality is achievable only by those preserving the virginal state. This concept seemingly originated among certain sects of the early Gnostic Christians, who taught that to propagate the human species was to increase and perpetuate the power of the demiurgus, for the lower world was looked upon as an evil fabrication created to ensnare the souls of all born into it. Hence it was a crime to assist in bringing souls to earth. When, therefore, the unfortunate father or mother shall stand before the final tribunal, all their offspring will also appear and accuse them of being the cause of those miseries attendant upon physical existence. This view is strengthened by the allegory of Adam and Eve, whose sin through which humanity has been brought low is universally admitted to have been concerned with the mystery of generation. Mankind, owing to Father Adam its physical existence, regards its progenitor as the primary cause of its misery, and in the judgment day, rising up as a mighty progeny, will accuse its common paternal ancestor. Those Gnostic sects maintaining a more rational attitude on the subject declared the very existence of the lower worlds to signify that the Supreme Creator had a definite purpose in their creation. To doubt his judgment was, therefore, a grievous error. The Church, however, seemingly arrogated to itself the astonishing prerogative of correcting God in this respect, for wherever possible it continued to impose celibacy, a practice resulting in an alarming number of neurotics. In the mysteries, celibacy is reserved for those who have reached a certain degree of spiritual unfoldment. When advocated for the mass of unenlightened humanity, however, it becomes a dangerous heresy, fatal alike to both religion and philosophy. As Christendom, in its fanaticism, has blamed every individual Jew for the crucifixion of Jesus, so with equal consistency it has maligned every member of the feminine sex. In Vindication of Eve, philosophy claims that the allegory signifies merely that man is tempted by his emotions to depart from the sure path of reason. Many of the early church fathers sought to establish a direct relationship between Adam and Christ, thereby obviously discounting the extremely sinful nature of man's common ancestor, since it is quite certain that when St. Augustine likens Adam to Christ and Eve to the church, he does not intend to brand the latter institution as the direct cause of the fall of man. For some inexplicable reason, however, religion has ever regarded intellectualism, in fact, every form of knowledge, as fatal to man's spiritual growth. The Ignoratine friars are an outstanding example of this attitude. In this ritualistic drama, possibly derived from the Egyptians, Adam, banished from the Garden of Eden, represents man philosophically exiled from the sphere of truth. Through ignorance, man falls. Through wisdom, he redeems himself. The Garden of Eden represents the house of the mysteries, see the vision of Enoch, in the midst of which grew both the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Man, the banished Adam, seeks to pass from the outer court of the sanctuary, the exterior universe, into the sanctum sanctorum, but before him rises a vast creature armed with a flashing sword that, moving slowly but continually, sweeps clear a wide circle, and through this ring pass not, the Adamic man cannot break. The cherubim address the seeker thus: Man, thou art dust, and to dust thou shalt return. Thou wert fashioned by the builder of forms. Thou belongest to the sphere of form, and the breath that was breathed into thy soul was the breath of form, and like a flame it shall flicker out. More than thou art, thou canst not be. Thou art a denizen of the outer world, and it is forbidden thee to enter this inner place. And the Adam replies, Many times have I stood within this courtyard and begged admission to my Father's house, and thou hast refused it me and sent me back to wander in darkness. True it is that I was fashioned out of the dirt, and that my Maker could not confer upon me the boon of immortality. But no more shalt thou send me away, for, wandering in the darkness, I have discovered that the Almighty hath decreed my salvation, because he hath sent out of the most hidden mystery his only begotten, who didst take upon himself the world fashioned by the Demiurgus. Upon the elements of that world was he crucified, and from him hath poured forth the blood of my salvation. And God, entering into his creation, hath quickened it, and established therein a road that leadeth to himself. While my Maker could not give me immortality, immortality was inherent in the very dust of which I was composed. For before the world was fabricated, and before the Demiurgus became the regent of nature, the eternal life had impressed itself upon the face of cosmos. This is its sign, the cross. Do you now deny me entrance, I who have at last learned the mystery of myself? And the voice replies, He who is aware is behold. Gazing about him, Adam finds himself in a radiant place, in the midst of which stands a tree with flashing jewels for fruit, and entwined about its trunk a flaming, winged serpent crowned with a diadem of stars. It was the voice of the serpent that had spoken. Who art thou? Demands the Adam. I, the serpent answers, am Satan who was stoned. I am the adversary, the Lord who is against you, the one who pleads for your destruction before the eternal tribunal. I was your enemy upon the day that you were formed. I have led you into temptation. I have delivered you into the hands of evil. I have maligned you. I have striven ever to achieve your undoing. I am the guardian of the tree of knowledge, and I have sworn that none whom I can lead astray shall partake of its fruits. The Adam replies, For uncounted ages have I been thy servant. In my ignorance I listened to thy words, and they led me into paths of sorrow. Thou hast placed in my mind dreams of power, and when I struggled to realize those dreams, they brought me naught but pain. Thou hast sowed in me the seeds of desire, and when I lusted after the things of the flesh, agony was my only recompense. Thou hast sent me false prophets and false reasoning, and when I strove to grasp the magnitude of truth, I found thy laws were false, and only dismay rewarded my strivings. I am done with thee forever, O artful spirit. I have tired of thy world of illusions. No longer will I labor in thy vineyards of iniquity. Get thee behind me, Rempter, and the host of thy temptations. There is no happiness, no peace, no good, no future in the doctrines of selfishness, hate, and passion preached by thee. All these things do I cast aside. Renounced is thy rule forever. And the serpent makes answer, Behold, O Adam, the nature of thy adversary. The serpent disappears in a blinding sunburst of radiance, and in its place stands an angel resplendent in shining golden garments with great scarlet wings that spread from one corner of the heavens to the other. Dismayed and awestruck, the atom falls before the divine creature. "I am the Lord who is against thee, and thus accomplishes thy salvation," continues the voice. "Thou hast hated me, but through the ages yet to be thou shalt bless me, for I have led the hour of the sphere of the demiurgus. I have turned thee against the illusion of worldliness. I have weaned thee of desire. I have awakened in thy soul the immortality of which I myself partake. Follow me, O Adam, for I am the way, the life, and the truth." An analysis of tarot cards. Opinions of authorities differ widely concerning the origin of playing cards, the purpose for which they were intended, and the time of their introduction into Europe. In his researches into the history of playing cards, Samuel Weller Singer advances the opinion that cards reached southern Europe from India by way of Arabia. It is probable that the tarot cards were part of the magical and philosophical lore secured by the Knights Templars from the Saracens, or one of the mystical sects then flourishing in Syria. Returning to Europe, the Templars, to avoid persecution, concealed the arcane meaning of the symbols by introducing the leaves of their magical book, ostensibly as a device for amusement and gambling. In support of this contention, Mrs. John King van Rensselaer states that cards were brought by the home-returning warriors who imported many of the newly acquired customs and habits of the Orient to their own countries seems to be a well-established fact, and it does not contradict the statement made by some writers who declared that the gypsies, who about that time began to wander over Europe, brought with them and introduced cards, which they used, as they do at the present day, for divining the future. See the Devil's Picture books. Through the gypsies, the tarot cards may be traced back to the religious symbolism of the ancient Egyptians. In his remarkable work, The Gypsies, Samuel Roberts presents ample proof of their Egyptian origin. In one place he writes, "When gypsies originally arrived in England is very uncertain. They are first noticed in our laws by several statutes against them in the reign of Henry VIII, in which they are described as an outlandish people, calling themselves Egyptians, who do not profess any craft or trade, but go about in great numbers." A curious legend relates that after the destruction of the Serapeum in Alexandria, the large body of attendant priests banded themselves together to preserve the secrets of the rites of Serapis. Their descendants, gypsies, carrying with them the most precious of the volumes saved from the burning library, the Book of Enoch, or Thoth, the Tarot, became wanderers upon the face of the earth, remaining a people apart with an ancient language and a birthright of magic and mystery. Court de Gebelin believed the word tarot itself to be derived from two Egyptian words, tar, meaning road, and ro, meaning royal. Thus the tarot constitutes the gay, royal wad to wisdom. See Le Monde Primitif. In his History of Magic, R. Christian, the mouthpiece of a certain French secret society, presents a fantastic account of a purported initiation into the Egyptian mysteries, wherein the 22 major tarots assume the proportions of trestle boards of immense size and line a great gallery. Stopping before each card in turn, the initiator described its symbolism to the candidate. Eduard Schure, whose source of information was similar to that of Christian's, hints at the same ceremony in his chapter on initiation into the Hermetic mysteries. See the Great Initiates. While the Egyptians may well have employed the tarot cards in their rituals, these French mystics present no evidence other than their own assertions to support this theory. The validity also of the so-called Egyptian tarots now in circulation has never been satisfactorily established. The drawings are not only quite modem, but the symbolism itself savors of French rather than Egyptian influence. The tarot is undoubtedly a vital element in Rosicrucian symbolism, possibly the very book of universal knowledge which the members of the order claim to possess. The Rota Mundi is a term frequently occurring in the early manifestos of the Fraternity of the Rose Cross. The word Rota, by a rearrangement of its letters, becomes tarot, the ancient name of these mysterious cards. W.F.C. Wigston has discovered evidence that Sir Francis Bacon employed the tarot symbolism in his ciphers. The numbers 21, 56, and 78, which are all directly related to the divisions of the tarot deck, are frequently involved in Bacon's cryptograms. In the Great Shakespearean Folio of 1623, the Christian name of Lord Bacon appears 21 times on page 56 of the Histories. See the Columbus of Literature. Many symbols appearing upon the tarot cards have definite Masonic interest. The Pythagorean numerologist will also find an important relationship to exist between the numbers on the cards and the designs accompanying the numbers. The Kabbalist will be immediately impressed by the significant sequence of the cards, and the alchemist will discover certain emblems meaningless, save to one versed in the divine chemistry of transmutation and regeneration. As the Greeks placed the letters of their alphabet, with their corresponding numbers, upon the various parts of the body of their humanly represented logos, so the tarot cards have an analogy not only in the parts and members of the universe, but also in the divisions of the human body. They are in fact the key to the magical constitution of man. The tarot cards must be considered, 1, as separate and complete hieroglyphs, each representing a distinct principle, law, power, or element in nature. 2, in relation to each other as the effect of one agent operating upon another. And 3, as vowels and consonants of a philosophic alphabet. The laws governing all phenomena are represented by the symbols upon the tarot cards, whose numerical values are equal to the numerical equivalents of the phenomena. As every structure consists of certain elemental parts, so the tarot cards represent the components of the structure of philosophy. Irrespective of the science or philosophy with which the student is working, the tarot cards can be identified with the essential constituents of his subject. Each card thus being related to a specific part according to mathematical and philosophical laws. An imprisoned person, writes Eliphas Levi, with no other book than the tarot, if he knew how to use it, could in a few years acquire universal knowledge and would be able to speak on all subjects with unequaled learning and inexhaustible eloquence. See Transcendental Magic. The diverse opinions of eminent authorities on the tarot symbolism are quite irreconcilable. The conclusions of the scholarly Court de Gebelin and the bizarre Grand Atala, the first authorities on the subject, not only are at radical variance, but both are equally discredited by Levi, whose arrangement of the tarot trumps was rejected in turn by Arthur Edward Waite and Paul Case as being an effort to mislead students. The followers of Levi, especially Papus, Christian, Westcott, and Schur, are regarded by the Reformed tarotists as honest but benighted individuals who wandered in darkness for lack of Pamela Coleman Smith's new deck of tarot cards with revisions by Mr. Waite. Most writers on the tarot, Mr. Waite a notable exception, have proceeded upon the hypothesis that the 22 major trumps represent the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. This supposition is based upon nothing more substantial than the coincidence that both consist of 22 parts. That Postel, St. Martin, and Levi all wrote books divided into sections corresponding to the major tarots is an interesting sidelight on the subject. The major trump cards portray incidents from the Book of Revelation, and the Apocalypse of St. John is also divided into 22 chapters. Assuming the Kabbalah to hold the solution to the tarot riddle, seekers have often ignored other possible lines of research. The task, however, of discovering the proper relationship sustained by the tarot trumps to the letters of the Hebrew alphabet and the paths of wisdom, thus far, has not met with any great measure of success. The major trumps of the tarot and the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet cannot be synchronized without first fixing the correct place of the unnumbered or zero card, Lamat, the Fool. Levy places this card between the 20th and 21st tarots, assigning to it the Hebrew letter Shin, Elpoun. The same order is followed by Papus, Christian, and Waite, the last, however, declaring this arrangement to be incorrect. Westcott makes the zero card the 22nd of the tarot major trumps. On the other hand, both Court de Gebelin and Paul Case place the unnumbered card before the first numbered card of the major trumps, for if the natural order of the numbers, according to either the Pythagorean or Kabbalistic system, be adhered to, the zero card must naturally precede the number 1. This does not dispose of the problem, however, for efforts to assign a Hebrew letter to each tarot trump in sequence produce an effect far from convincing. Mr. Waite, who re-edited the tarot, expresses himself thus: I am not to be included among those who are satisfied that there is a valid correspondence between Hebrew letters and tarot trump symbols. See Introduction to the Book of Formation by Newt Stenring. The real explanation may be that the major tarots no longer are in the same sequence as when they formed the leaves of Hermes' sacred book, for the Egyptians, or even their Arabian successors, could have purposely confused the cards so that their secrets might be better preserved. Mr. Case has developed a system which, while superior to most, depends largely upon two debatable points, namely, the accuracy of Mr. Waite's revised tarot and the justification for assigning the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet to the unnumbered, or zero card. Since Aleph, the first Hebrew letter, has the numerical value of 1, its assignment to the zero card is equivalent to the statement that 0 is equal to the letter Aleph, and therefore synonymous with the number 1. With rare insight, Court de Gebelin assigned the zero card to In Sof, the unknowable first cause. As the central panel of the Bembine table represents the creative power surrounded by 7 triads of manifesting divinities, so may the zero card represent that eternal power of which the 2-1 surrounding or manifesting aspects are but limited expressions. If the 21 major trumps be considered as limited forms existing in the abstract substance of the zero card, it then becomes their common denominator. Which letter, then, of the Hebrew alphabet is the origin of all the remaining letters? The answer is apparent: Yod. In the presence of so many speculations, one more may not offend. The zero card Lamat, the Fool, has been likened to the material universe because the mortal sphere is the world of unreality. The lower universe, like the mortal body of man, is but a garment, a motley costume, well likened to cap and bells. Beneath the garments of the Fool is the divine substance, however, of which the jester is but a shadow. This world is a Mardi Gras, a pageantry of divine sparks masked in the garb of fools. Was not this zero card, the Fool, placed in the tarot deck to deceive all who could not pierce the veil of illusion? The tarot cards were entrusted by the illumined hierophants of the mysteries into the keeping of the foolish and the ignorant, thus becoming playthings, in many instances even instruments of vice. Man's evil habits therefore actually became the unconscious perpetuators of his philosophical precepts. We must admire the wisdom of the initiates, writes Pappus, who utilized vice and made it produce more beneficial results than virtue. Does not this act of the ancient priests itself afford proof that the entire mystery of the tarot is wrapped up in the symbolism of its zero card? If knowledge was thus entrusted to fools, should it not be sought for in this card? If Lamat be placed before the first card of the tarot deck and the others laid out in a horizontal line in sequence from left to right, it will be found that the Fool is walking toward the other trumps as though about to pass through the various cards. Like the spiritually hoodwinked and bound neophyte, Lamat is about to enter upon the supreme adventure, that of passage through the gates of the divine wisdom. If the zero card be considered as extraneous to the major trumps, this destroys the numerical analogy between these cards and the Hebrew letters by leaving one letter without a tarot correspondent. In this event, it will be necessary to assign the missing letter to a hypothetical tarot card called the elements, assumed to have been broken up to form the 56 cards of the minor trumps. It is possible that each of the major trumps may be subject to a similar division. The first numbered major trump is called Le Battler, the juggler, and according to Court de Gebelin, indicates the entire fabric of creation to be but a dream, existence a juggling of divine elements, and life a perpetual game of hazard. The seeming miracles of nature are but feats of cosmic legerdemain. Man is like the little ball in the hands of the juggler, who waves his wand, and presto, the ball vanishes. The world looking on does not realize that the vanished article is still cleverly concealed by the juggler in the hollow of his hand. This is also the adept whom Omar Khayyam calls the master of the show. His message is that the wise direct the phenomena of nature and are never deceived thereby. The magician stands behind a table on which are spread out a number of objects, prominent among them a cup, the Holy Grail, and the cup placed by Joseph in Benjamin's sack, a coin, the tribute money and the wages of a master builder, and a sword, that of Goliath, and also the mystic blade of the philosopher, which divides the false from the true. The magician's hat is in the form of the cosmic lemniscate, signifying the first motion of creation. His right hand points to the earth. His left holds aloft the rod of Jacob, and also the staff that budded, the human spine crowned with the globe of creative intelligence. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the magician wears an ursius, or golden band, around his forehead. The table before him is in the form of a perfect cube, and his girdle is the serpent of eternity, devouring its own tail. The second numbered major trump is called La Papesse, the female pope, and has been associated with a curious legend of the only woman who ever sat in the pontifical chair. Pope Joan is supposed to have accomplished this by masquerading in malt attire, and was stoned to death when her subterfuge was discovered. This card portrays a seated woman crowned with a tiara surmounted by a lunar crescent. In her lap is the Torah, or Book of the Law, usually partly closed, and in her left hand are the keys to the secret doctrine, one gold and the other silver. Behind her rise two pillars, Jachin and Boaz, with a multicolored veil stretched between. Her throne stands upon a checkerboard floor. A figure called Juno is occasionally substituted for La Papesse. Like the female Hierophant of the Mysteries of Cybele, this symbolic figure personifies the Shekinah, or divine wisdom. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the priestess is veiled, a reminder that the full countenance truth is not revealed to uninitiated man. A veil also covers one half of her book, thus intimating that but one half of the mystery of being can be comprehended. The third numbered major trump is called Impercitric E, the Empress, and has been likened to the woman clothed with the sun, described in the Apocalypse. On this card appears the winged figure of a woman seated upon a throne, supporting with her right hand a shield emblazoned with a phoenix, and holding in her left a scepter surmounted by an orb or trifoliate flower. Beneath her left foot is sometimes shown the crescent. Either the Empress is crowned or her head is surrounded by a diadem of stars, sometimes both. She is called Generation and represents the threefold spiritual world out of which proceeds the fourfold material world. To the graduate of the College of the Mysteries, she is the alma mater out of whose body the initiate has born again. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the Empress is shown seated upon a cube filled with eyes, and a bird is balanced upon the forefinger, other left hand. The upper part of her body is surrounded by a radiant golden nimbus. Being emblematic of the power from which emanates the entire tangible universe, L'Imperatrice is frequently symbolized as pregnant. The fourth numbered major trump is called L'Empereur, the Emperor, and by its numerical value is directly associated with the great deity revered by the Pythagoreans under the form of the tetrad. His symbols declare the emperor to be the demiurgus, the great king of the inferior world. The emperor is dressed in armor, and his throne is a cube stone, upon which a phoenix is also clearly visible. The king has his legs crossed in a most significant manner, and carries either a scepter surmounted by an orb or a scepter in his right hand and an orb in his left. The orb itself is evidence that he is supreme ruler of the world. Upon his right and left breasts, respectively, appear the symbols of the sun and moon, which in symbolism are referred to as the eyes of the great king. The position of the body and legs forms the symbol of sulfur, the sign of the ancient alchemical monarch. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the figure is in profile. He wears a Masonic apron, and the skirt forms S right-angled triangle. Upon his head is the crown of the north, and his forehead is adorned with the coiled ursius. The fifth numbered major trump is called Le Pape, the Pope, and represents the high priest of a pagan or Christian mystery school. In this card, the Hierophant wears the tiara and carries in his left hand the triple cross surmounting the globe of the world. His right hand, bearing upon its back the stigmata, makes the ecclesiastic sign of esotericism, and before him kneel two suppliants or acolytes. The back of the papal throne is in the form of a celestial and a terrestrial column. This card signifies the initiate or master of the mystery of life, and according to the Pythagoreans, the spiritual physician. The illusionary universe in the form of the two figures, polarity, kneels before the throne upon which sits the initiate who has elevated his consciousness to the plane of spiritual understanding and reality. In the Pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the master wears the Ursius, a white and a black figure, life and death, light and darkness, good and evil, kneel before him. The initiate's mastery over unreality is indicated by the tiara and the triple cross, emblems of rulership over the three worlds which have issued from the unknowable first cause. The sixth numbered major trump is called l'amoureux, the lovers. There are two distinct forms of this tarot. One shows a marriage ceremony in which a priest is uniting a youth and a maiden, Adam and Eve, in holy wedlock. Sometimes a winged figure above transfixes the lovers with his dart. The second form of the card portrays a youth with a female figure on either side. One of these figures wears a golden crown and is winged, while the other is attired in the flowing robes of the Bacchante, and on her head is a wreath of vine leaves. The maidens represent the twofold soul of man, spiritual and animal, the first his guardian angel, and the second his ever-present demon. The youth stands at the beginning of mature life, the parting of the ways, where he must choose between virtue and vice, the eternal and the temporal. Above, in a halo of light, is the genius of fate, his star, mistaken for Cupid by the uninformed. If youth chooses unwisely, the arrow of blindfolded fate will transfix him. In the Pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the arrow of the genius points directly to the figure of vice, thereby signifying that the end of her path is destruction. This card reminds man that the price of free will, or more correctly, the power of choice, is responsibility. The seventh numbered major trump is called Lo Chariot, the chariot, and portrays a victorious warrior crowned and riding in a chariot drawn by black and white sphinxes or horses. The starry canopy of the chariot is upheld by 4 columns. This card signifies the exalted one who rides in the chariot of creation. The vehicle of the solar energy, being numbered 7, reveals the arcane truth that the 7 planers are the chariots of the solar power which rides victorious in their midst. The 4 columns supporting the canopy represent the 4 mighty ones who uphold the worlds represented by the star-strewn drapery. The figure carries the scepter of the solar energy, and its shoulders are ornamented with lunar crescents, the Urim and Thummim. The sphinxes drawing the chariot resent the secret and unknown power by which the victorious ruler is moved continuously through the various parts of his universe. In certain tarot decks, the victor signifies the regenerated man, for the body of the chariot is a cubic stone. The man in armor is not standing in the chariot, but is rising out of the cube, thus typifying the ascension of the 3 out of the 4, the turning upward of the flap of the master mason's apron. In the Pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the warrior carries the curved sword of Luna, is bearded to signify maturity, and wears the collar of the planetary orbits. His scepter, emblematic of the threefold universe, is crowned with a square upon which is a circle surmounted by a triangle. The 8th numbered major trump is called La Justice, justice, and portrays a seated figure upon a throne, the back of which rises in the form of 2 columns. Justice is crowned and carries in her right hand a sword and in her left a pair of scales. This card is a reminder of the judgment of the soul in the Hall of Osiris. It teaches that only balanced forces can endure, and that eternal justice destroys with the sword that which is unbalanced. Sometimes justice is depicted with a braid of her own hair twisted around her neck in a manner resembling a hangman's knot. This may subtly imply that man is the cause of his own undoing, his actions, symbolized by his hair, being the instrument of his annihilation. In the Pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the figure of justice is raised upon a dais of 3 steps, for justice can be fully administered only by such as have been elevated to the 3rd degree. Justice is blindfolded, that the visible shall in no way influence its decision. For reasons he considers beyond his reader's intelligence, Mr. Waite reversed the 8th and 11th major trumps. The 9th numbered major trump is called l'ermite, the hermit, and portrays an aged man, robed in a monkish habit and cowl, leaning on a staff. This card was popularly supposed to represent Diogenes in his quest for an honest man. In his right hand, the recluse carries a lamp which he partly conceals within the folds of his cape. The hermit thereby personifies the secret organizations which for uncounted centuries have carefully concealed the light of the ancient wisdom from the profane. The staff of the hermit is knowledge, which is man's main and only enduring support. Sometimes the mystic rod is divided by knobs into 7 sections, a subtle reference to the mystery of the 7 sacred centers along the human spine. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the hermit shields the lamp behind a rectangular cape to emphasize the philosophic truth that wisdom, if exposed to the fury of ignorance, would be destroyed like the tiny flame of a lamp unprotected from the storm. Man's bodies form a cloak through which his divine nature is faintly visible, like the flame of the partly covered lantern. Through renunciation, the Hermetic life, man attains depth of character and tranquility of spirit. The 10th numbered major trump is called La Roue de Fortune, the Wheel of Fortune, and portrays a mysterious wheel with 8 spokes, the familiar Buddhist symbol of the cycle of necessity. To its rim cling Anubis and Typhon, the principles of good and evil. Above sits the immobile Sphinx, carrying the sword of justice and signifying the perfect equilibrium of universal wisdom. Anubis is shown rising and Typhon descending, but when Typhon reaches the bottom, evil ascends again, and when Anubis reaches the top, good wanes once more. The Wheel of Fortune represents the lower universe as a whole, with divine wisdom, the Sphinx, as the eternal arbiter between good and evil. In India, the chakra, or wheel, is associated with the life centers either of a world or of an individual. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the Sphinx is armed with a javelin, and Typhon is being thrown from the wheel. The vertical columns, supporting the wheel, and so placed that but one is visible, represent the axis of the world with the inscrutable Sphinx upon its northern pole. Sometimes, the wheel with its supports is in a boat upon the water. The water is the ocean of illusion, which is the sole foundation of the cycle of necessity. The 11th numbered major trump is called La Force, Strength, and portrays a girl wearing a hat in the form of a lemniscate, with her hands upon the mouth of an apparently ferocious lion. Considerable controversy exists as to whether the maid is dosing or opening the lion's mouth. Most writers declare her to be closing the jaws of the beast, but a critical inspection conveys the opposite impression. The young woman symbolizes spiritual strength, and the lion, either the animal world, which the girl is mastering, or the secret wisdom over which she is mistress. The lion also signifies the summer solstice, and the girl, Virgo, for when the sun enters this constellation, the virgin robs the lion of his strength. King Solomon's throne was ornamented with lions, and he himself was likened to the king of beasts, with the key of wisdom between its teeth. In this sense, the girl may be opening the lion's mouth to find the key contained therein, for courage is a prerequisite to the attainment of knowledge. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the symbolism is the same, except that the maiden is represented as a priestess wearing an elaborate crown in the form of a bird, surmounted by serpents and an ibis. The 12th numbered major trump is called Le Pendu, the Hanged Man, and portrays a young man hanging by his left leg from a horizontal beam, the latter supported by 2 tree trunks, from each of which 6 branches have been removed. The right leg of the youth is crossed in back of the left, and his arms are folded behind his back in such a way as to form a cross, surmounting a downward-pointing triangle. The figure thus forms an inverted symbol of sulfur, and according to Levi, signifies the accomplishment of the magnum opus. In some decks, the figure carries under each arm a money bag from which coins are escaping. Popular tradition associates this card with Judas Iscariot, who is said to have gone forth and hanged himself, the money bags representing the payment he received for his crime. Levi likens the hanged man to Prometheus, the eternal sufferer, further declaring that the upturned feet signify the spiritualization of the lower nature. It is also possible that the inverted figure denotes the loss of the spiritual faculties, for the head is below the level of the body. The stumps of the 12 branches are the signs of the zodiac divided into 2 groups, positive and negative. The picture therefore depicts polarity temporarily triumphant over the spiritual principle of equilibrium. To attain the heights of philosophy, therefore, man must reverse or invert the order of his life. He then loses his sense of personal possession because he renounces the rule of gold in favor of the golden rule. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the hanged man is suspended between 2 palm trees and signifies the sun god who dies perennially for his world. The 13th numbered major trump is called La Mort, Death, and portrays a reaping skeleton with a great scythe cutting off the heads, hands, and feet rising out of the earth about it. In the course of its labors, the skeleton has apparently cut off one of its own feet. Not all tarot decks show this peculiarity, but this point well emphasizes the philosophic truth that unbalance and destructiveness are synonymous. The skeleton is the proper emblem of the first and supreme deity because it is the foundation of the body, as the absolute is the foundation of creation. The reaping skeleton physically signifies death, but philosophically that irresistible impulse in nature which causes every being to be ultimately absorbed into the divine condition in which it existed before the illusionary universe had been manifested. The blade of the scythe is the moon with its crystallizing power. The field in which death reaps is the universe, and the card discloses that all things growing out of the earth shall be cut down and returned to earth again. Kings, queens, courtesans, and knaves are alike to death, the master of the visible and apparent parts of all creatures. In some tarot decks, death is symbolized as a figure in armor mounted on a white horse, which tramples underfoot old and young alike. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, a rainbow is seen behind the figure of death, thus signifying that the mortality of the body of itself achieves the immortality of the spirit. Death, though it destroys form, can never destroy fife, which continually renews itself. This card is the symbol of the constant renovation of the universe, disintegration that reintegration may follow upon a higher level of expression. The 14th numbered major trump is called La Temperance, temperance, and portrays an angelic figure with the sun upon her forehead. She carries two one empty and the other full, and continually pours the contents of the upper into the lower. In some tarot decks, the flowing water takes the form of the symbol of Aquarius. Not one drop, however, of the living water is lost in this endless transference between the superior vessel and the inferior. When the lower urn is filled, the vases are reversed, thus signifying that life pours first from the invisible into the visible, then from the visible back into the invisible. The spirit controlling this flow is an emissary of the great Jehovah, demiurgus of the world. The sun, or light cluster, upon the woman's forehead controls the flow of water, which, being drawn upward into the air by the solar rays, descends upon the earth as rain, to drawn up and fall again ad infinitum. Herein is also shown the passage of the human life forces back and forth between positive and negative poles of the creative system. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the symbolism is the same, except that the winged figure is male instead of female. It is surrounded by a solar nimbus and pours water from a golden urn into a silver one, typifying the descent of celestial forces into the sublunary spheres. The 15th numbered major trump is called Lo Diable, the devil, and portrays a creature resembling Pan with the horns of a ram or deer, the arms and body of a man, and the legs and feet of a goat or dragon. The figure stands upon a cubic stone, to a ring in the front of which are chained two satyrs. For a scepter, this so-called demon carries a lighted torch or candle. The entire figure is symbolic of the magic powers of the astral light, or universal mirror, in which the divine forces are reflected in an inverted or infernal state. The demon is winged like a bar, showing that it pertains to the nocturnal or shadow inferior sphere. The animal natures of man, in the form of a male and a female elemental, are chained to its footstool. The torch is the false light which guides unilumined souls to their own undoing. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot appears Typhon, a winged creature composed of a hog, a man, a bat, a crocodile, and a hippopotamus, standing in the midst of its own destructiveness and holding aloft the firebrand of the incendiary. Typhon is created by man's own misdeeds, which, turning upon their maker, destroy him. The 16th numbered major trump is called Le Feu du Ciel, the fire of heaven, and portrays a tower, the battlements of which, in the form of a crown, are being destroyed by a bolt of lightning issuing from the sun. The crown, being considerably smaller than the tower which it surmounts, possibly indicates that its destruction resulted from its insufficiency. The lightning bolt sometimes takes the form of the zodiacal sign of Scorpio, and the tower may be considered a phallic emblem. Two figures are failing from the tower, one in front and the other behind. This tarot card is popularly associated with the traditional fall of man. the divine nature of humanity is depicted as a tower. When his crown is destroyed, man falls into the lower world and takes upon himself the illusion of materiality. Here also is a key to the mystery of sex. The tower is supposedly filled with gold coins, which, showering out in great numbers from the rent made by the lightning bolt, suggesting potential powers. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the tower is a pyramid, its apex shattered by a lightning bolt. Here is a reference to the missing capstone of the universal house. In support of Levi's contention that this card is connected with the Hebrew letter ayin, the failing figure in the foreground is similar in general appearance to the 16th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The 17th numbered major trump is called les étoiles, the stars, and portrays a young girl kneeling with one foot in water and the other on and her body somewhat suggesting the swastika. She has two the contents of which she pours upon the land and sea. Above the girl's head are 8 stars, one of which is exceptionally large and bright. Count de Gebelin considers the great star to be Sothis or Sirius. The other 7 are the sacred planets of the ancients. He believes the female figure to be Isis in the act of causing the inundations of the Nile which accompanied the rising of the dog star. The unclothed figure of Isis may well signify that nature does not receive her garment of verdure until the rising of the Nile waters releases the germinal life of plants and flowers. The bush and bird, or butterfly, signify the growth and resurrection which accompany the rising of the waters. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the great star contains a diamond composed of a black and white triangle, and the flowering bush is a tall plant with a trifoliate head upon which a butterfly alights. Here Isis is in the form of an upright triangle, and the vases have become shallow cups. The elements of water and earth under her feet represent the opposites of nature, sharing impartially in the divine abundance. The 18th numbered major trump is called La Lune, the moon, and portrays Luna rising between 2 towers, one light and the other dark. A dog and a wolf are baying at the rising moon, and in the foreground is a pool of water from which emerges a crawfish. Between the towers, a path winds, vanishing in the extreme background. Court de Gebelin sees in this card another reference to the rising of the Nile and states on the authority of Pausanias that the Egyptians believed the inundations of the Nile to result from the tears of the moon goddess, which, falling into the river, swelled its flow. These tears are seen dropping from the lunar face. Court de Gebelin also relates the towers to the pillars of Hercules, beyond which, according to the Egyptians, the luminaries never passed. He notes also that the Egyptians represented the tropics as dogs who, as faithful doorkeepers, prevented the sun and moon from penetrating too near the poles. The crab or crawfish signifies the retrograde motion of the moon. This card also refers to the path of wisdom. Man in his quest of reality emerges from the pool of illusion. After mastering the guardians of the gates of wisdom, he passes between the fortresses of science and theology and follows the winding path leading to spiritual liberation. His way is faintly lighted by human reason, the moon, which is but a reflection of divine wisdom. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the towers are pyramids, the dogs are black and white respectively, and the moon is partly obscured by clouds. The entire scene suggests the dreary and desolate place in which the mystery dramas of the lesser rites were enacted. The 19th numbered major trump is called Le Soleil, the sun, and portrays 2 children, probably Gemini, the twins, standing together in a garden surrounded by a magic ring of flowers. One of these children should be shown as male and the other female. Behind them is a brick wall apparently enclosing the garden. Above the wall, the sun is rising, its rays alternately straight and curved. 13 teardrops are falling from the solar face Levi, seeing in the 2 children faith and reason, which must coexist as long as the temporal universe endures, writes, human equilibrium requires 2 feet, the worlds gravitate by means of 2 forces, generation needs 2 sexes. Such is the meaning of the Arcanum of Solomon, represented by the 2 pillars of the temple, Jachin and Boaz. See Transcendental Magic. The Sun of Truth is shining into the garden of the world, over which these 2 children, as personifications of eternal powers, reside. The harmony of the world depends upon the coordination of 2 qualities, symbolized throughout the ages as the mind and the heart. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the children give place to a youth and a maiden. Above them, in a solar nimbus, is the phallic emblem of generation, a line piercing a circle. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and the two children personify the serpents entwined around the caduceus. The 20th numbered major trump is called Le Jugement, the judgment, and portrays three figures rising apparently from their tombs, though but one coffin is visible. Above them, in a blaze of glory, is a winged figure, presumably the angel Gabriel, blowing a trumpet. This tarot represents the liberation of man's threefold spiritual nature from the sepulchre of his material constitution. Since but 1/3 of the spirit actually enters the physical body, the other 2/3 constituting the Hermetic anthropos or overman, only one of the three figures is actually rising from the tomb. Court de Gebelin believes that he coffin may have been an afterthought of the card makers, and that the scene actually represents creation rather than resurrection. In philosophy, these two words are practically synonymous. The blast of the trumpet represents the creative word, by the intoning of which man is liberated from his terrestrial limitations. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, it is evident that the three figures signify the parts of a single being, for three mummies are shown emerging from one mummy case. The 21st numbered major trump is called Le Monde, the world, and portrays a female figure draped with a scarf, which the wind blows into the form of the Hebrew letter Kaf. Her extended hands, each of which holds a wand, and her left leg, which crosses behind the right, cause the figure to assume the form of the alchemical symbol of sulfur. The central figure is surrounded by a wreath in the fawn of a vesica piscis, which Levi likens to the Kabbalistic crown Kether. The cherubim of Ezekiel's vision occupy the corners of the card. This tarot is called the microcosm and the macrocosm because in it are summed up every agency contributing to the structure of creation. The figure in the form of the emblem of sulfur represents the divine fire and the heart of the great mystery. The wreath is nature, which surrounds the fiery center. The cherubim represent the elements, worlds, forces, and planes issuing out of the divine fiery center of life. The wreath signifies the crown of the initiate, which is given to those who master the four guardians and enter into the presence of unveiled truth. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the cherubim surround a wreath composed of 12 trifoliate flowers, the decanates of the zodiac. A human figure kneels below this wreath, playing upon a harp of 3 strings, for the spirit must create harmony in the triple constitution of its inferior nature before it can gain for itself the solar crown of immortality. The 4 suits of the minor trumps are considered as analogous to the 4 elements, the 4 comers of creation, and the 4 worlds of Kabbalism. The key to the lesser tarots is presumably the tetragrammaton, or the 4-letter name of Jehovah, IHVH. The 4 suits of the minor trumps represent also the major divisions of society. Cups are the priesthood, swords the military, coins the tradesman, and rods the farming class. From the standpoint of what Court de Gebelin calls political geography, cups represent the northern countries, swords the Orient, coins the Occident, and rods the southern countries. The 10 pip cards of each suit represent the nations composing each of these grand divisions. The kings are their governments, the queens their religions, the knights their histories and national characteristics, and the pages their arts and sciences. Elaborate treatises have been written concerning the use of the tarot cards in divination. But as this practice is contrary to the primary purpose of the tarot, no profit can result from its discussion. Many interesting examples of early playing cards are found in the museums of Europe, and there are also noteworthy specimens in the cabinets of various private collectors. A few hand-painted decks exist which are extremely artistic. These depict various important personages contemporary with the artists. In some instances, the court cards are portraitures of the reigning monarch and his family. In England, engraved cards became popular, and in the British Museum are also to be seen some extremely quaint stenciled cards. Heraldic devices were employed, and Chatto, in his Origin and History of Playing Cards, reproduces 4 heraldic cards in which the arms of Pope Clement IX adorn the King of Clubs. There have been philosophical decks with emblems chosen from Greek and Roman mythology, Also educational decks ornamented with maps or pictorial representations of famous historic places and incidents. Many rare examples of playing cards have been found bound into the covers of early books. In Japan, there are card games, the successful playing of which requires familiarity with nearly all the literary masterpieces of that nation. In India, there are circular decks depicting episodes from Oriental myths. There are also cards which in one sense of the word are not cards, for the designs are on wood, ivory, and even metal. There are comic cards caricaturing disliked persons and places, and there are cards commemorating various human achievements. During the American Civil War, a patriotic deck was circulated in which stars, eagles, anchors, and American flags were substituted for the suits, and the court cards were famous generals. Modern playing cards are the minor trumps of the tarot, from each suit of which the page or valet has been eliminated, leaving 13 cards. Even in its abridged form, however, the modem deck is of profound symbolic importance, for its arrangement is apparently in accord with the divisions of the year. The two colors, red and black, represent the two grand divisions of the year, that during which the sun is north of the equator, and that during which it is south of the equator. The four suits represent the seasons, the ages of the ancient Greeks, and the yugas of the Hindus. The 12 court cards are the signs of the zodiac arranged in triads of a father, a power, and a mind, according to the upper section of the Bembine table. The 10 pip cards of each suit represent the sephirothic trees existing in each of the four worlds, the suits. The 13 cards of each suit are the 13 lunar months in each year, and the 52 cards of the deck are the 52 weeks in the year. Counting the number of pips and reckoning the jacks, queens, and kings as 11, 12, and 13 respectively, the sum for the 52 cards is 364. If the joker be considered as 1 point, the result is 365, or the number of days in the year. Milton Pottinger believed that the United States of America was laid out according to the conventional deck of playing cards, and that the government will ultimately consist of 52 states administered by a 53rd undenominated division, the District of Columbia. The court cards contain a number of important Masonic symbols. 9 are full face and 3 are profile. Here is the broken wheel of the law, signifying the 9 months of the prenatal epoch and the 3 degrees of spiritual unfoldment necessary to produce the perfect man. The 4 armed kings are the Egyptian Ammonian architects who gouged out the universe with ives. They are also the cardinal signs of the zodiac. The 4 queens, carrying 8 petaled flowers symbolic of the Christ, are the fixed signs of the zodiac. The 4 jacks, 2 of whom bear acacia sprigs, the jack of hearts in his hand, the jack of clubs in his hat, are the 4 common signs of the zodiac. It should be noted also that the court cards of the spade suit will not look upon the pip in the corner of the card, but face away from it as though fearing this emblem of death. The Grand Master of the Order of the Cards is the King of Clubs, who carries the orb as emblematic of his dignity. In its symbolism, chess is the most significant of all games. It has been called the royal game, the pastime of kings. Like the tarot cards, the chessmen represent the elements of life and philosophy. The game was played in India and China long before its introduction into Europe. East Indian princes were wont to sit on the balconies of their palaces and play chess with living men standing upon a checkerboard pavement of black and white marble in the courtyard below. It is popularly believed that the Egyptian pharaohs played chess, but an examination of their sculpture and illuminations has led to the conclusion that the Egyptian game was a form of draughts. In China, chessmen are often carved to represent warring dynasties, as the Manchu and the Ming. The chessboard consists of 64 squares alternately black and white and symbolizes the floor of the House of the Mysteries. Upon this field of existence or thought move a number of strangely carved figures, each according to fixed law. The white king is Ormuzd, the black king, Ahriman, and upon the plains of Cosmos, the great war between light and darkness is fought through all the ages. Of the philosophical constitution of man, the kings represent the spirit, the queens the mind, the bishops the emotions, the knights the vitality, the castles or rooks the physical body. The pieces upon the king's side are positive, those upon the queen's side Negative. The pawns are the sensory impulses and perceptive faculties, the 8 parts of the soul. The white king and his suite symbolize the self and its vehicles. The black king and his retinue, the not-self, the false ego and its legion. The game of chess thus sets forth the eternal struggle of each part of man's compound nature against the shadow of itself. The nature of each of the chessmen is revealed by the way in which it moves. Geometry is the key to their interpretation. For example, the castle, the body, moves on the square. The bishop, the emotions, moves on the slant. The king, being the spirit, cannot be captured but loses the battle when so surrounded that it cannot escape.